Chromebooks, corruption, and the false promise of digital education in Indonesia. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Indonesian Ministry of Education and Culture, Kemendikbud, launched an ambitious program to procure Chromebooks for schools across the archipelago. The stated purpose was commendable: to bridge the digital divide and support distance learning in a time of crisis. However, as more data and field reports have emerged, the initiative increasingly appears tainted by systemic inefficiencies, if not outright corruption. Between 2020 and 2022, hundreds of billions of rupiah were allocated to the procurement of Chromebooks through the national e-catalog and SIPLah platforms. But far from being a symbol of innovation, this program is now raising red flags across multiple stages of the procurement cycle, from planning and specifications to vendor selection and final delivery. As a public procurement specialist, I have reviewed numerous contracts, pricing benchmarks, and technical specifications. The findings are disturbing. Here's why. Mismatch between needs and solutions. The foundation of any responsible procurement lies in accurate needs assessment. Yet in the case of the Chromebook program, many of the recipient schools were located in remote and underdeveloped regions, commonly referred to as 3T, tertinggal, terdepan, terluar, where internet connectivity is either poor or non-existent. Deploying internet-dependent devices such as Chromebooks to areas without reliable access to electricity or broadband defies logic. Reports from teachers in Papua, NTT, and inland Kalimantan all echo a similar complaint: these devices are practically unusable in our area. Why then were Chromebooks chosen? Where is the documented analysis comparing different device types, e.g., Windows laptops, Android tablets, or even offline-ready tools? There is no evidence that a nationwide survey of student-teacher readiness was ever conducted. Suspicious technical specifications and price markups. The specifications in the procurement contracts typically listed low-end models, devices with 4 GB RAM and 32 GB of storage. These were priced at 4 Indonesian rupiahs -8 million per unit. Meanwhile, market comparisons reveal that similar or better models were available for 2 Indonesian rupiahs -3 million less in the open market. The questions naturally arise: were the unit prices inflated to accommodate hidden fees or kickbacks? Why wasn't bulk procurement used to negotiate volume discounts with manufacturers? Who approved the so-called harga perkiraan sendiri, estimated unit price, and based on what methodology? Such price discrepancies point toward one of the most common and corrosive procurement practices: artificial markups under the guise of administrative or logistics costs. Closed vendor ecosystem and platform manipulation. Indonesia's e-catalog and SIPLah platforms were designed to democratize procurement, enabling competitive bidding and transparency. Yet the Chromebook case shows signs of systemic manipulation. A review of transaction records shows that certain vendors were consistently favored across multiple contracts. These companies often had exclusive access to procurement calls, and in some cases, technical specifications were adjusted mid-process to fit their product lines. There are even allegations that some of these vendors share close ties with senior officials at Kemendikbud, raising potential conflict of interest concerns. Even more concerning is that these platforms, meant to provide open access, became gatekeepers that excluded capable local suppliers who were unable to navigate the opaque requirements or lacked political backing. Execution failures and payment irregularities. Beyond the questionable planning and procurement process, the delivery phase was riddled with failure. In multiple provinces, schools received devices late, in different brands than specified, or with incomplete accessories. Nevertheless, payments were processed in full, suggesting that the contract oversight mechanisms were either weak or complicit. In one reported instance, a school in Maluku received devices with broken batteries, and yet no replacement was offered. In another, devices sat unopened for months due to lack of trained teachers and connectivity. These are not isolated anecdotes, they point to systemic design flaws and possible dereliction of duty. The real cost: eroding trust in digital transformation. Digital transformation in education is essential, but it must not become a Trojan horse for rent-seeking behavior. Technology projects, especially those rolled out in crises, often escape proper scrutiny. The Chromebook scandal, if unaddressed, risks becoming a dangerous precedent for future digital initiatives. What is at stake here is not just money. It's the trust of teachers, students, parents, and taxpayers in the government's ability to deliver meaningful solutions. Call to action. A comprehensive audit is needed, covering procurement planning, price determination, vendor selection, contract execution, and delivery verification. The Audit Board of Indonesia, BPK, Corruption Eradication Commission, KPK, and civil society must work together to ensure accountability. Key questions must be answered. Who signed off on the specifications and pricing? Which vendors consistently won tenders and why? Why were payments made despite non-compliance in delivery? Transparency is non-negotiable when public funds and future generations are involved. Conclusion: Indonesia cannot afford a digital education strategy that benefits a few while leaving many behind. Chromebooks should have empowered students, not enriched a handful of insiders. To prevent the corruption of public trust, this case must be brought into the light, clearly, publicly, and without compromise.
Chromebook dan bayangan korupsi digitalisasi pendidikan. Ketika pandemi COVID-19 memaksa dunia pendidikan Indonesia bertransformasi ke arah digital, Kementerian Pendidikan dan Kebudayaan Kemendikbud menggulirkan program pengadaan Chromebook secara masif. Tujuannya mulia, mendukung pembelajaran jarak jauh PJJ agar peserta didik tetap bisa belajar dari rumah. Namun di balik retorika modernisasi itu, muncul dugaan bahwa program ini tidak sepenuhnya dijalankan secara bersih. Selama 2020 hingga 2022, pemerintah menganggarkan ratusan miliar rupiah untuk pengadaan Chromebook melalui platform e-katalog dan SIPLah. Tapi berbagai laporan lapangan, analisis kontrak, serta perbandingan harga pasar menunjukkan bahwa pengadaan ini mengandung kejanggalan serius. Pertama, identifikasi kebutuhan terkesan asal-asalan. Banyak sekolah penerima berada di wilayah 3T tertinggal, terdepan, terluar, yang justru minim akses internet, padahal Chromebook sangat bergantung pada konektivitas. Tidak tampak ada studi kelayakan atau survei lapangan yang mendalam sebelum pengadaan. Kedua, spesifikasi teknis Chromebook yang dibeli pemerintah, misal, RAM 4 GB, storage 32 GB, justru menunjukkan harga di atas pasar. Ada selisih harga hingga 2 juta rupiah unit. Ini membuka celah markup dan dugaan adanya biaya siluman dalam harga perkiraan sendiri HPS. Ketiga, sistem e-katalog dan SIPLah yang semestinya menjamin transparansi justru diwarnai praktik eksklusif. Vendor-vendor tertentu selalu memenangkan transaksi. Bahkan ditemukan indikasi perubahan spesifikasi di tengah jalan yang menguntungkan penyedia tertentu. Keempat, dalam pelaksanaan, banyak laporan menyebut barang datang terlambat, merek tidak sesuai kontrak, bahkan tidak berfungsi optimal. Meski demikian, pembayaran tetap dilakukan. Sekolah sebagai pihak penerima tidak memiliki kuasa menolak barang, menciptakan ruang leluasa bagi fraud. Ironisnya, semua ini terjadi di bawah kebijakan yang disebut sebagai lompatan digital. Kita harus bertanya, lompatan untuk siapa? Digitalisasi pendidikan adalah keniscayaan. Namun, prosesnya tidak boleh dijadikan kendaraan proyek dan komoditas korupsi berjubah teknologi. Jika praktik seperti ini dibiarkan, maka program-program transformasi digital ke depan akan semakin sulit dipercaya publik. Pemerintah dan aparat penegak hukum harus membuka audit menyeluruh terhadap pengadaan Chromebook ini. Sudah saatnya prinsip akuntabilitas dan value for money benar-benar diterapkan, bukan sekadar jargon administratif. Jika tidak, bukan hanya uang negara yang dirugikan, tapi juga masa depan pendidikan anak bangsa.